Well, it's been exactly an hour, and the compressor has been on the whole time, I'm assuming, and we're down to like 92%, and it's pulling 44 watt. Saw it as like as low as 37, as high as 48, 49, something like that. It's on max cool right now. We're trying to get it down to like 30, 32 inside. So we'll see what happens. This is no solar input, and I'm gonna go install the solar on here and connect it and see what happens. All right, guys, I wanted to go over some of the products I bought. So this right here, this is the MC4 to 8mm connection that will go from the solar panel, the Renogy solar panel, directly into Jackery if you want to charge your Jackery directly. And I want to do that just for a test. This stuff is a bunch of MC4 connectors in there, and how to basically take any 14 to 10 gauge wire, stick it in there, and get that working. And then this, I just bought the MC4 pigtails because these are actually made by Renogy, so they're going to give me the most ultimate seal for the outside, to get the most weatherproof seal I could, because these connectors are going to be exactly perfect for the Renogy solar panel. And then the last thing here, it's a really simple setup, guys. So the last thing here is a Renogy solar controller, which is pretty simple and basic. And I'm gonna install this somewhere in the 4runner. I haven't decided where yet. Maybe my buddy that's coming over to help me install the solar panel help me decide where to put it. This is what we're gonna use along with the solar panel to make this work. And of course, you know, my own 14 gauge wire and a few other things. So I'm just waiting for them to show up right now. We're gonna grill some carne asada. All right, so here's the panel, 100 watt Renogy. Let me unbox it really quick, and we're gonna connect it and see what happens. There she is, looks good. I'm gonna drop these two legs to get the angle down and then connect it. All right, so once the fridge is to temp, it only draws a watt just sitting here. Like, we're just sitting here, and the solar, as you can see right now, it's very, very cloudy. And here's my panel, and it's pulling in 10 watts now. Just a second ago it was 11 watts. But anyway, it's charging, at least it's charging it more than it's using it, because we're only pulling 1 out and getting 10 in. And this thing, compressor is off, so it's up to temp. We were getting negative 20 whatever volts, I think. If it wasn't as hazy today and the sun was more directly above, that would help out. But let me take these corners off and see if that does anything. All right, now we're pulling 20 watt. I took those corners off, and here we go. The sun's came out just a little bit more, so I'm pretty sure when the sun's like really out, it's gonna get more. Like, it just went down to 19, we're right back to 20. But the Jackery is already back to 94%, and it's charging. That's awesome. I mean, this is pretty cool. All right, so now we're at 6 watt in, 1 out. The Jackery's at 100%, and it's been, what time is it? 3:30? About 3:30 right now. And so it's been about an hour. Yeah, it's been an hour. Within an hour, this thing is, I don't know, I haven't checked earlier. Maybe it was charged before then, but it works amazing, because considering, you see where the sun is right now, it's...
Well, plus I parked where my shadow's on it.
Oh yeah, and then his car is casting a shadow now, so... Oh, it's all good. We're at 100% on the Jackery. So yeah, solar is definitely a must of any kind, to kind of substitute that if you're just kind of hanging out. And you could probably run this indefinitely, I would imagine. Yeah, definitely doing a test run at home of all your gear before going out in the middle of nowhere is perfect. I thought I was ready, but I had friends come over today, and she already asked me for what, at least like 6 things more that I didn't have. So I definitely have to figure that out. We're just doing like backyard kind of cooking.
We're glamping.
We're glamping. At the same time, we're doing the solar, testing the Iceco fridge with the Jackery.
It's like a glamping rehearsal.
Yeah, it's a rehearsal. So already, so many flaws in the system that she's like, do you have this? Do you have that? I'm like, I did, but I took it out and I never put it back. So good thing she literally asked for everything that I would be wondering where the hell it's at when I'm out there and I need it, because I'm a poor planner. What is up, guys? Halfway through the video, I'm finally doing the intro. Bob with Backcountry Daily. In today's video, the idea was to test out the fridge, the Jackery, the solar panel, maybe install the solar panel, make some good food, test out all the flaws in my kitchen and my overland kitchen, and then kind of go from there. So this video is kind of all over the place, but there's a lot of good info in it, so stay tuned. All right, well, I'm pretty impressed. So right now we're pulling 4 watts, taking out, and the sun is right there. And I mean, it's cloudy. This thing is in pretty much complete shade. I wonder when the sun goes behind the mountain if we're still gonna pull anything. We'll have to see. All right, guys, this is even cool. 3 watt in, 1 out. Sun's completely behind the mountain. Boom. Isn't that cool? I'm really happy with this setup. The fridge has been, she's been opening it a bunch of times. Like, she's cooking, so she's taking. Huh? Did it?
Yeah.
So you think it works kind of like a house fridge? And we can go all the way down to -8 or something on it. And it's at 32 right now. Yeah, so she opened it a bunch of times. She said it got her Gatorade cold.
Yeah.
And right now it's still pulling 3 watts, only using 1. What are we making in here, boss?
We are putting a ribeye on there and some carne asada.
Right on. It's actually a beautiful day for this.
That's nice. It's gonna get cold though.
Killing it here with the meats. Hell yeah. That looks yum.
To gain weight, so.
Yeah, same here. I lose weight like crazy.
Lose weight being with her. Because we eat together, right? So.
Those backyard camping actually turned out pretty good.
Oh yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Food was amazing. I'm gonna go for seconds. Company's great. Plate's empty. How you liking it?
It's really good.
You're the creator of this masterpiece. Really, the couscous was just out of control. Like here, I'll show you guys. It's got bacon, mushroom, 3 different cheeses,
Paprika.
Paprika, bunch of bacon grease, a lot of butter, a lot of cream. Kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And got shrimp, carne asada, and steak. Just everything. Oh, it's ribeye?
Uh-huh.
Ribeye is my favorite.
Prime ribeye.
Okay, so that's where the hole is, and that's where the wire comes in. You see, guys? It comes in right there.
Mm-hmm.
So you just fish it through. All you gotta do is pop all these plastics off, and then you can get the wire like that, like we just did.
Yeah.
So right now we're just pulling excess wire because this has to go all the way to the solar controller, and I haven't decided where I'm gonna install it yet. So I'm thinking somewhere up front. All right, so we ended up installing the panel on the roof rack at a little angle to help with the, with the solar, so I could park my car strategically. And so it's not flat. It was Steve's idea, and I went with it. I think it's a good idea. And we're using metal zip ties, a few of them. And for now, that should work. We may add some more reinforcement later. And then if you could please show them where it goes in the car.
So it goes in the car right there.
And then that's where basically siliconed everything. Hopefully no water gets in.
Yep.
And she's all sealed up. Should dry by tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Right on. All right, guys. Next day here. It is the Jackery was at 85% just a minute ago. So all night it ran. The fridge is at 27 degrees. compressor is on right now. It's drawing 50 watts. So excellent. I mean, so the sun went down around what, 4:30 yesterday. Around, I think around 4:30, so around there, we unplugged it, and it's like 11 o'clock the next day. So this thing's been on like, I don't know, 18 hours or something, and it only went down to 84%. That's crazy. That's so good. That means you could run a fridge off this Jackery for a few days for sure. Also, so the solar panel we installed yesterday, I mean, badass. Like, it's angled, everything, and we ran the wires in. So here's where the wire comes out. So it was so dark yesterday, couldn't really finish the video. This is where the wire comes out right now. I'm gonna run it all the way to the front to the solar controller, but for now I just have like a bunch of it here. We're getting 20 volts here, which is perfect. So I'm gonna figure out a place to mount the solar controller, and then from there I'm gonna run from the solar controller is gonna go to the main battery. So I'm thinking about doing that instead of running it from the solar panel directly to the Jackery and only charging the Jackery. I think I want my main battery to charge also, and then later on maybe I'll do a splitter or something, or be able to unplug the solar controller. If I do like the Anderson plugs, if I use the Anderson plugs, I can unplug the solar controller really easily and plug in Jackery directly from the solar panel. And the reason why I'm thinking doing that is simply so, like, if let's say I want to get, like last night I was getting like 20 watts or less because the sun was going down. Like, if I have the Jackery connected to my car battery, it's gonna pull everything. Like, it's gonna pull full whatever 85 watts or whatever the most it can pull, but the solar is only gonna provide, like, let's say 20 or less to the car battery, which puts my car battery at a risk. So I want to be able to run the solar directly to Jackery, bypassing the car battery at some point, ideally, or maybe, I don't know. That's my thought process. So I haven't figured that out yet, but I'm thinking I'm just gonna run this to the solar controller and to the main battery. And then I regret buying a regular main battery. I should have bought a deep cycle, like a Optima or whatever, but I ended up buying just like a regular battery, Interstate, because I wanted to be cheap and save on cost. But nah, man, I regret it now. I should have just went with a good battery. All right, let me catch you guys up. So this, I just finished this pigtail. It's gonna go from the fuse box into the firewall down there. It already is through the firewall, and let's connect it to here, and then I'll take you guys inside and show you. Okay, so we have a 15 amp fuse in here. I just have to label solar and then the 12 volt outlet. And we have the ground here at a star ground. And then of course it runs into the firewall. Alright, so these wires here are the ones we just connected to the battery, and that's going to be going from the solar controller to the battery. And then this set is from the solar panel. It's going to go to the solar controller. So just got to hook it all up. Alright guys, well, my battery was at 12.4 just a minute ago. Now it's at 12.5. I got the solar connected, so it is charging. I don't really have much light. Like, the sun definitely already went down. There's not much light right now. So we'll see in the morning. I'm going to read how to use this thing a little bit more, and I'm going to mount it like right to the right of that black vent, and clean up the wires in a little bit. Well, now it's a third day here, and I installed this little guy yesterday. You guys could see right now it's got 0.1 amps. The 15 is a setting, don't worry about that. So basically you got 17.3 volts coming in from the solar panel, and then it's charging my battery at 1.7 amps, 1.5 amps, 1.4 amps, and then that's my battery voltage right now. So once it gets it like fully charged or whatever, it's just gonna float it later. Well, yeah, so that's it, guys. There you have it. Solar panel works. The controller's connected to my battery under the hood, and I have my Jackery that can charge through that for now, through the 12 volt plug. And later on, I'm gonna get the Anderson plugs, and I'll make it to where I can run the Jackery directly from the solar panel. So, or I'll get a portable solar panel for the Jackery that I can set outside. So we'll see. All right, so right now it's very cloudy, and we're only getting, let's see. So the battery is floating at 13.7 volts, which is perfect. And then the solar panels are only giving us, let's see, should be the next reading. Okay, 16.5 volts, because we're very cloudy. But we're still pulling in voltage. Well, yes, thanks for watching. I hope you guys take something away from this video. Hope it helps those of you out that are interested in doing a solar in your vehicle. Alright guys, let's make some sense of this video. I know it's kind of been all over the place, but I'm going to try to do my best to explain it and kind of summarize it all. And let's go over some of the tech stuff and a diagram that I made for you guys to explain the watts per hour, the amps per hour, the gauges, and what you need for your setup. At the beginning of the video, you see me running the fridge off of Jackery directly at first. The fridge was at a warm temperature, close to 80 degrees. It's been in the car for a few days, so it was really hot throughout. The plastic's really hot. Everything was hot. It took the 500 watt Jackery 8%, so from 100 it went down to 92%, to get the fridge from about 80 degrees down to 30, 32 operating temp. Okay, once that happened, I plugged in a solar panel directly to the Jackery, and a solar panel was placed on the table next to the 4runners you saw earlier in the video. That ended up charging the Jackery all the way back up to 100%. That was just a test run to make sure that the solar panel was functional before we spend time installing it on top of the vehicle, and to see if the Jackery can actually read the solar voltage and so on and so forth. Once I've established that, we ended up finalizing the installation by placing a solar panel on the roof rack and running the wires permanently into the car to the solar controller. And I'll show you a diagram here in a second. So here's the Renogy solar panel. It was placed on a roof rack of the car. So the solar panel comes with a built-in pigtail, positive and negative, and these connectors are called MC4. I was recommended to buy Renogy pigtail connectors from Amazon. All these parts are going to be linked in the description below, so you will have really easy access to those, and you can just click them and it'll take you straight to Amazon. You can order the same exact parts yourself and copy this verbatim, and then you'll have a working solar setup. Now, these connectors, the reason for them is to create a very good seal between the MC4 connectors. If you run Renogy panel with some cheapy connectors, they may not seal well, you may have some issues. I ended up using 14 gauge wire from this point into the car, and we used 3M heat shrink butt connectors, very good quality, and they're very weather resistant. 14 gauge running into the vehicle to the Renogy solar controller. Okay, 14 gauge from the solar controller to the fuse box under the hood. Firewall is somewhere here. Okay, we're running that on 15 amps because this is a Renogy Wonder 10 amp, and they recommend a 15 amp fuse for the whole setup. All right, then from the fuse box, we're running a 14 gauge wire to my 12 volt always hot socket that's inside the vehicle. I put a 20 amp fuse on that, and the fuse box is directly connected to the battery, of course. From the socket, we have the 500 watt Jackery with its included DC plug that is supplied with Jackery plugged in to the DC input of the Jackery and the 12 volt always hot socket. And then we have the Iceco fridge plugged in to the Jackery with the DC plug wire that's supplied with the Iceco fridge. So in a nutshell, that's the diagram of how I have it running. Later on, I want to be able to basically take this wire here, coming in directly from the solar, put an Anderson connector here, and it will be able to go directly to the solar input of the Jackery. So then bypassing, all this. So that is what I was talking about earlier in the videos, that I wanted to have an option to run the Jackery directly to the solar panel. Or another option would be to just run a portable solar panel that would be placed outside the vehicle, and not do that ever. So that's another option, just for those of you that are interested in other options. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to go over in the video is just the Ohm's law, the basic term watts per hour and amps per hour. Everything is pretty much measured in that you're going to be doing here. And two very important concepts you're going to want to understand is that it's a potential flow of energy. So voltage is a potential, current is a flow, and power is energy. So basically, you can calculate things back and forth using basic algebra. So wattage, what's wattage? Power. It's nothing but current multiplied by voltage, or amps times volts. And what is current? Current is power divided by voltage, or watts divided by volts. So for example, you have 500 watts, you divide it by 12 volts, and you get 41 amps. You have 3 amps, you multiply it by 12 volts, and you get 36 amps, or watts, I'm sorry. So basically, this is a 12-volt system, right? So the vehicle, it runs off a 12-volt system. So everything, for the sake of this video, is on 12 volts. For example, if you have a 5-watt light, 12-volt DC, and on that light, it'll say something along the lines of it can take anywhere from 9 to 18 volts of DC. That's just its operating range, right? If you're trying to calculate and see how many hours will this 5-watt light run off a 500 watt Jackery, all you have to do, you divide 500 watt by 5 watt and 100 hours. So you can run a 5-watt light off your 500 watt Jackery for about 100 hours. For example, if you have a 12-volt heated blanket that's rated at 6 amps, and it's a 12-volt DC blanket, well, you want to see how many hours you could run that off your 500-watt Jackery. So what you would do at first is you want to calculate how many watts does this blanket pull. If it's rated at 6 amps, you go 6 amps times 12 volts, gives you 72 watts. Then you take your 500 watts divided by 72, and it gives you 6.94 hours. So almost 7 hours, you could run your 12-volt heated blanket off a 500-watt Jackery. I hope this is making sense, because you can calculate anything in the vehicle, and that way you can build your system accordingly, because depending on your load requirements, you may need to get a larger solar controller, and you may have to upgrade to a bigger panel. So you may do a 200-watt panel and maybe a 20-amp controller. In that case, I would recommend increasing your gauge of the wire from 14 to 12 or even maybe 10. Now, let's say you're not running a Jackery. Let's say you're running a 100-amp-hour lithium battery, and you have a 150-watt load that needs to be connected to it, and you want to see how many hours you could run a 150-watt load. It could be anything off a 100-amp-hour battery. So first, you would do 150 divided by 12, power over voltage, right? That'll give us 12.5 amps. So you're converting your 150 watt hour load into 12.5 amp hour load, okay? That way it's easy to see how many hours the battery will run it, because you can do 100 amps then divided by 12.5 amps, right? That'll give us 8 hours. So to run a 150 watt load, or otherwise a 12.5 amp load off a 100 amp hour battery, you could run it for 8 hours. Now, if this battery was not lithium, you really shouldn't drain it all the way. So 100 amp hour, let's say lead acid deep cycle, for example, or whatever, is going to only give you 50 amp hours. So instead of 8 hours, you're really only going to be running this for 4 hours. Otherwise, you're going to be damaging your battery. So in order to get the full 8 hours, you'd have to run the lithium battery. I hope this helps those of you. Basically, in the vehicle, everything is based off a 12-volt system, unless you have a 24-volt system. And based off that 12-volt system, you really have to only worry about the power, which is measured in watts, or the current, which is measured in amps. You can convert whatever you like using basic math, and that way you can calculate whatever load you need. And this also applies to like your fridge, your solar panel, anything that runs off a 12-volt. You can use this formula, this Ohm's law formula, to get anything you want, to convert anything you want, to get any answers you want, get any calculations you want. And these three are just examples that I just used to, for example, if you wanted to calculate these things, I went over 3 examples, and you can apply anything else you want to the same concept. Hope this helps. Take care, guys.